Happy Sunday. Welcome back to Online Sunday School and welcome back to our newest story today. Are you excited what we are going to be learning about today? I am. I'm super excited because it's really one of those things that I need to still learn. It's really one of those things that I love to still learn about God because there's so many amazing and beautiful things about God. And today we get to learn all about a man named Abram and his wife Sarai. You might remember them as Abraham and Sarah. This was right before their names changed. And here's the really cool thing. Today is all about God's promises, that God keeps his promises. So I have two questions for you guys to think about this morning. Are you ready for them? So the first one is, have you ever been outside, not in a city, but at night, maybe in the mountains or maybe in a field somewhere, where you see so many stars you couldn't count all of them? Have you ever had that before? Have you ever experienced that before? It kind of looks like this. So, could you count all those stars? I couldn't. I mean, it would take me a really long time. But when we can get into a space when we can't count that many stars, it's a lot of stars. I want you guys to think about that time right now and maybe talk about it with your family, a time you guys have seen stars like that, or maybe your family has experienced stars like that. All right, so just take a little bit, let's talk about that, and then we're gonna get ready for our story. Talk about it? Okay, my next question is another thing that I want you guys to think about. Have you ever had a friend break a promise? That's a hard question, huh? I have. I've had friends let me down before. Doesn't feel very good, does it? And sometimes makes us sad. Well, I want you guys to think about your feelings that you had when someone broke a promise to you and see what we learn about God and how God keeps his promise. So today we are going to learn about God's promise and we are going to read from the Spark Story Bible. This is one of my favorite stories. So let's get started, and then I'm super excited to share about what our activities are. God's promises to Abram. God came to Abram and made a promise. Abram, you are very special to me. I will take care of you and give you lots of children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. But Abram asked God many times, are you sure? I don't have any children yet. God thought Abram needed something more to help him understand. So God took Abram outside and showed him the night sky. Do you remember the night sky you were thinking about? It's a good time to think about it. Your family will include as many people as there are stars in the sky, God told Abram. Abram stared up at those stars. He couldn't begin to count all those twinkling lights. Stars and stars and stars all around him. Abram looked up at the stars and saw God at work. Abram believed God. Now for another promise, said God to Abram. You will need a place for your huge family to live. I will give you this land as I promised. Are you sure, God? Abram asked again. God made a covenant with Abram. See, that's a promise that Abram would become a father and a grandfather and a great-grandfather and a great-great-grandfather and a great-great-great-great-grandfather, and so on and on. And all of Abram's many, many sons and daughters and grandsons and granddaughters would live with God on the land where Abram stood. Did you hear the two promises that God made? That God would give Abram as many descendants as the stars in the sky, which is just a really fancy way of saying he will have a lot of great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren in his life. And he would give him the land that he was standing on. Now, here's the really cool thing about the story of Abram, is those promises, they come true. God keeps his promise. And when we learn all about Abram and the promises that God made, we also learn that sometimes things can take a little while, but that God is always with us. And I love thinking about that, and I love remembering this story. In fact, when I lived in Kansas, which if any of you guys have spent time in Kansas, it's a lot quieter. And I lived in a small town for a while, so when I would go look out at the stars, there weren't any city lights. And so I could see this vast expanse, which is a big way of just saying there was a lot of stars. But I like saying vast because I think it's a great word. So there were all of these stars, and when I was teaching teenagers at that point, I could lay under the stars with them and I could teach them all about this story because they could see how many stars there were and that there were so many of them that Abram couldn't count them all. And I love to remind you that stars are a great reminder of God's promise. And when we look up at the stars, they can be a fun reminder of that. So today, our two projects, we have two different options today on what you can do to help remind you that stars help to give us hope in God's promises. First one's really fun. And okay, parents, heads up. I used a lot of glitter on mine because I love glitter. But I know glitter can be messy, but that's also one of the reasons I love it. So if you guys don't have glitter at home, you guys can come up with other creative ways to make these sparkle and shine. You guys get to decorate this the way that you want. So the first one, do you see how much glitter I have? I told you I loved it. So the first one, you're going to take some black construction paper, and then you're going to make stars in the sky. But I don't know if you can see what I did up close. So if you see up close, down at the bottom I made the land, and what's really cool about black construction paper, if you use a white crayon, you can still draw on it and make your own land at the bottom. And then I use stickers and glitter for the top to show so many stars in the sky. And every time I look at this, this will remind me that God keeps his promises. Okay, so the second option is, you guys, I have a full page of stars. Now you guys can color these stars, or you guys can write in some of God's promises that you learned from this story. I love to write in there that God can be trusted, because I love to be reminded that God is trustworthy. And even though I've had friends break promises before, God never breaks his promises to me, because God is trustworthy. So you'll get stars that will look like this on the piece of paper, and you guys can decorate them. And actually, I wrote on a lot of these. Nope, we can't see that one. Let's try this one. This one is one of my glitter ones. How do I? There we go. Or then I have some more that I did. Can you guys really tell I really got into glitter today? So there's even some over here that you guys can see, and there's some right here. And here's what's really cool is once you guys decorate your stars, you guys are then going to find a room in your house where you want to hang them up to help remind you of God's promise and that God keeps his promise. Actually, let's do that right now. Do you see them? Oh my goodness, I love the way these stars look up, and I love that the picture's hung up too, because all of these will help to remind me and help me find comfort and hope in the fact that God keeps his promises and that God is always faithful and loving to us. So have fun with this today as a family. Create some great spaces for these reminders. I love carrying these stories with us throughout the week. So I hope you guys enjoy today. I hope you have a lovely Sunday. I will see you soon. And let's finish together with a prayer. How about you repeat after me? Because I would love for us to pray together. Dear God, life can be hard. Things can seem out of control. Thinking of tomorrow can make us scared. But you are with us through everything, no matter what. Your promises can be trusted. Thank you. Amen. Just like the stars are always with us, God is always with us. I will see you very soon.